Just a word from him. He has fought the raging war of sorrow. When he speaks, a whisper shouts within. I see a miracle in an empty grave. The one we thought was dead has come to life again. I see a miracle in every chain you break. The power of heaven roaring within me. He will lift the anxious and the weary, calling home the burden and the lost. And I am proof that you delight in second chances. And I am proof of the power in the cross. I see a miracle in an empty grave. The one we thought was dead has come to life again. I see a miracle in every chain you break. The power of heaven roaring within me. All for love, you rose triumphant. All for love, you are. All for love, you came back for me. All for love, all for love, all for love. My name is worthy. All for love, you've come. All for love, your scars cried mercy. All for love, all for love. Jesus Christ, passion is his name. He traded all the glory for our shame. Like heroes, freedom from the ashes, we will rise from death to life again. I see a miracle in an empty grave. The one we thought was dead has come to life again. I see a miracle in every chain you break. The power of heaven roaring within me. I see a miracle. Oh, I see a miracle. Oh, I see a miracle. Oh, the power of heaven roaring within me.
What's up, Dulles family? I'm Andrew, the student pastor here, and I am so happy to welcome you on this Easter weekend. Wherever you're watching from, different parts of the country, a different country, or if you're right here at Lightridge High School, I'm so happy that you're celebrating Easter with us. This is the weekend where we celebrate the greatest moment in human history, and we truly believe Easter was and is that moment. We love that you've joined us for it. We have a lot of exciting things to share with you. So, here we go. Next Sunday, April 11th, we are bringing back our wine and cheese nights. This is a time to meet Brad and Amy and get to know some of our team here at Dulles. Join us outside at the Russell's home from 4 to 5:30 p.m. It's casual. You can come and go whenever you want. Just RSVP at wine@dulleschurch.org. We can't wait to see you. And speaking of April 11th, myself, my wife, the student leadership team, we've been hard at work to build and start this brand new student ministry. And we've been doing a lot of exciting things, and we just get to finally give it to you next week. We get to finally show you, we get to tell you about the name, the vision, and the heart behind the new student ministry. So if you have a high schooler, a middle schooler, if you're a parent, or if you have friends who have students, or you have friends who are middle schoolers and high schoolers, you do not want to miss next week. We got big things to tell you guys. And speaking of not missing things, we don't want you to miss out on anything else happening at Dulles. So please take a moment to fill out our digital connection card by scanning this QR code so that we have your contact information. As we begin regular gatherings in person, we don't want you to miss out on any important updates from us. And yes, you heard that right. We are starting right now, this week, back to gathering every week in person. We've been counting down the days for this. So every Sunday morning at 10 a.m., we will be gathering in person at Lightridge High School. We've put in a lot of work into making sure that we provide a safe space to connect with you. So you can go to dulleschurch.org/Lightridge for more details about our in-person gatherings. We also want to make it clear that we will forever be gathering online. Seeing your names each week pop up on the chat has been such a fun way to stay connected with you through this crazy year. And it's allowed us to connect with those who don't even live in the Dulles area. And we love that so many people around the country join us each week or watch on our YouTube channel during the week. Our online gatherings are here to stay. So, however you're able to join us, invite a friend to join us in person or to watch it with you online. We can't wait to see you soon, and we love being in this community with you. On behalf of myself, my wife Jessie, and the entire team and family here at Dulles, Happy Easter.
The kids are coming back. The kids are back. The kids are back. Those kids are coming back next week. We hope you could join us.
After Jesus died, they put Jesus in a tomb
And wrapped him with some white paper.
They put a big stone around it and placed guards in front of the tomb to let nobody go in.
He was just waiting for the 3 days.
He's probably drinking soda while eating hot Cheetos.
He would probably play games like Candyland and then have a party by himself.
The Easter Bunny was hiding behind a tree. He probably went out there and just throw eggs everywhere, and then he's gonna say, "There's one money egg, so you better find it. You'll get some money."
3 days later, there was a big earthquake.
I think we should go away somewhere safe. Psych, I'm getting out of here. The earth is shaking. Run for your lives.
And the guards ran off because they got scared.
And then on Sunday, Mary and some of her friends came with some spices. But when they got there, the tomb is empty. His clothes only was there. Then an angel came and said,
Don't be afraid. Jesus has risen from the dead. Go tell the good news.
Mary and her friends went and told the disciples.
She said, Jesus has risen from the dead.
Guys, Jesus has risen from the dead. And the disciples didn't believe them.
No, that couldn't happen.
Jesus can't raise from the dead. I don't believe it until I see it. But all of a sudden, Jesus came, just was there. I am Jesus. I am the Son of the Lord God, and I am Jesus, your friend. And then the disciples said, Jesus, it's you! Yay! Jesus is alive! Totes cool. Jesus, before he left to heaven, he said, I have done what I have came to do. And then he risen, then he was going up to heaven. His disciples were crowded around him. The disciples said, holy guacamole, I can't believe Jesus really flew. That's awesome. Now what? Let's go tell the news.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad you're with us on this Easter. And again, I just want to reiterate something that Andrew said a moment ago. Parents of middle schoolers, parents of high schoolers, and students, you really don't want to miss next week. The directional team and I are just so excited about what Andrew's been working on. And so I won't say anything more than that, but next week is the start of something really cool here at Dulles you don't want to miss. Okay, now about today. For those of you joining us online, I love meeting you like this every week. But for those of you in the Lightridge auditorium this morning, I can't describe how disappointed I am I'm not in the room with you today. So here's what happened. On Good Friday, just a couple days ago, I got a call and learned that I had been exposed to someone who had just tested positive the day before on Thursday, a few days ago. I'd been with somebody, and even though a mask was on the whole time and that person feels great and I feel great, and even though our team actually discussed this weekend me getting rapid tested yesterday on Saturday, we just really all agreed the right thing to do for safety and just our thoughtfulness of everyone is for me to not be in the room today. And it is so hard for me for a lot of reasons. It's Easter, but I've just been so excited to get back in person. And today is really the official start of that. We just really feel like it's the right thing to do. So I'm going to, in some of my frustration and some of my just what I've been battling here about my own disappointment of not being there, I'm going to focus on actually the point of my message today. It's ironic what I'm talking about today, and I'm practicing what I'm about to preach here, really. And so I'm just going to invite you to do that with me. As different as this year's been and as different as this Easter weekend is, let's really kind of dive into the heart that God has for all of us when we face challenges, when we face uncertainty, when we feel like God's not showing up. Let's look at what he really may be up to. All right. Okay, so I was late to my very first date with Amy, and she still from time to time reminds me of this. Amy and I met in the springtime, and we hung out a lot of evenings every week for a couple of months, a lot of dinners, a lot of movie nights. And we got to the point where neither one of us were sure if we were actually dating. I was hoping we were. And so I finally had that conversation, and I went kind of dramatic. I bought tickets to Phantom of the Opera at the Kennedy Center, and Amy said yes. And so we were having our first official date, and we were dressing up. She bought a dress for the evening. And then that afternoon, when I was picking her up, I was late. I want to say I was about 10 minutes late. It might have been a little longer than that. And every once in a while, maybe once a year, Amy reminds me. Amy's mom, my mother-in-law, Valerie, she'll remind me sometimes. And I think while Amy was waiting for me there that day, Amy's mom said something to the effect of, "Oh boy, I don't know, Aim, about this guy. He might be trouble." So for those of you who find yourselves showing up late from time to time, this Easter message is dedicated to you. And maybe you joined us a few minutes late today. I hope you feel at home here with us at Dulles. Okay, so I thought today there was about a week or so that I thought my Easter message may be centered on an event on Easter weekend, really on the criminal who hung on the cross next to Jesus, who died on the cross next to Jesus. And I was going to ask you the question, is your good good enough? It's interesting, with the exception of atheists, nearly every person on the planet, certainly every major world religion, believes something to the effect of the way we get to life after this immediate life that we're in right now, the way we get to the good place, the way we get to heaven, the way we get to the eternal good life after this one we're in is by being good. That's what much of the world, the vast majority of the world believes. And much of Christianity's history actually teaches that. And what's interesting is Jesus himself contradicts what every other major world religion teaches and what most humans believe. Jesus actually says our good doesn't get us there. And so I'm not going to talk about that today. I decided to turn that into a 3-week series that we're going to start next week. And we're going to ask the question, is my good good enough? And one of the examples we're going to look at, one of quite a few in the series, is the criminal who hung on the cross next to Jesus and the interesting dialogue that they had where the criminal admits to his own guilt. This is essentially a very bad person who, after this conversation with Jesus, hears Jesus say, "Today you will be with me in paradise." And that really messes with the construct that so many of us have believed and much of the world believes. And so we're gonna do the logical next step with the rationale that, hey, if I'm good, then I'll get to the good place. We're gonna take the next step and just ask the question, well, then how good? How good is good enough? If you know someone who struggles with religious guilt or regret or has had bad religious experiences, invite them to join us starting next week. Invite them to join us here watching online or here in the Dulles area to join us at Lightridge. They will not regret it and you will not regret it. Okay, today we're going to talk about the idea on this Easter Sunday of how so many of us, I want to say every one of us, have experienced, and maybe we are right now, the frustration of wondering, what is God doing and why is God not showing up and why is God allowing? And I've been one of them here in the last few days. And it happens to us throughout life. Maybe a week doesn't go by where we're not questioning why. Why in the world? And we're going to look at a life and death situation where somebody had every right to question God. God, if your reality, if your love, if your plan really is good, where are you? And so with that, we're going to start right here in the opening verse of John chapter 11. Now, a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. So the sisters sent word to Jesus, "Lord, the one you love is sick," meaning their brother Lazarus. Now, here's the first of several confusing statements that Jesus makes here in this story. When he heard this news about his close friend Lazarus, he said he's at least 3 or 4 days away from Bethany. We realize in the context here as we read, he's saying to his disciples, this sickness will not end in death. Well, what was confusing to me early in my faith about that statement is we read on a little further and realize that within 48 hours, Lazarus dies. Jesus says his sickness won't end in death. Let's continue. No, he says to the disciples, his sickness is for God's glory. Glory is one of those words that I used to ignore. I didn't understand it. It sounded like just kind of a high church or Bible word that really didn't mean anything. We'll get back to that in a minute. No, it's for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it. Now, Jesus loved Martha and her sister Mary and Lazarus. Now, we're told that just before verse 6, which for a long time was one of the most confusing verses in all of Scripture to me. John 11, verse 6 used to frustrate me as a young early Bible reader. So we're just told how much Jesus loves Mary and Martha and Lazarus. And then verse 6 says this. So when Jesus heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. Like, why? He's the miracle worker. He's the one who makes sick people and broken people whole. And there's overwhelming evidence to all of his followers. They've seen this time and time and time again. The one who could do something for Lazarus learns that he's sick and stays where he was 2 more days. Talk about being late. Wow. I mean, Jesus knows he's going to be late. He actually says it. He's saying, I'm going to delay. It's like he's intentionally choosing to be late. I mean, I might start saying this to Amy instead of, hey, babe, I'm sorry, the meeting ran long, or I tried to put a lot into the end of my workday, or I wasn't managing my time well. Maybe I'll start saying, hey, I was late on purpose. I chose to be late. Jesus chose to be late, babe. So, I mean, this is such odd behavior. Like, what is he doing? It's pretty bad when Jesus is late, or so we think, and so much of the world thinks. And certainly the mourners who will leave Jerusalem and come to the tomb of Lazarus will certainly express that it's bad when Jesus is late. Martha will absolutely say that here in just a few minutes. And I don't know if you're struggling, have ever struggled, or maybe you are right now with just the overwhelming thought, I want to believe that God is real and he has a good plan for me. I would love to believe this version of Jesus and who God is that Dulles talks about all the time. But I can't get past the fact that God just hasn't shown up. He seems to be ignoring the crisis, the hurt, the challenge that just doesn't end. Where is he? Why is he waiting? Why is God late? Why does he seem to show up for other people but not show up for me? Man, if that is where you are, I just believe deep in my heart that today, this Easter, is for you. So when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days, and then he said 2 days later to his disciples, now let us go back to Judea. The disciples responded, but Rabbi, a short while ago, the Jews there tried to stone you, and yet you're going to go back to Judea? Not to mention to a little suburb village of Jerusalem. The disciples knew there was a death sentence on Jesus' head by the religious leaders. What no one understands yet in this story, what the mourners who we're going to see here in just a moment, what Mary and Martha, what his disciples do not understand, what they cannot comprehend, is that the moment Jesus chooses to step or move toward the tomb of Lazarus, he has begun the movement toward his own tomb. What no one understands yet, that Jesus is beginning to open our eyes, he's beginning to set the stage for what's really coming, is that when Jesus begins to journey towards Lazarus' hometown of Bethany, towards Jerusalem, Jesus has begun the journey toward the cross, toward his own death. What he's beginning to show us through the sickness of Lazarus is that resurrection, we think he speaks of love in an amazing, remarkable way beyond anything that we've ever seen or heard. We think he has a power from the Father that we can't describe, that no one can describe. They have difficulty putting into words how many people he's healing and how overwhelmingly and convincingly his power from God is. And yet he's setting the stage now here in these hours to say, I'm now going to reveal the full extent of what not only I have in my power, but what I've brought for you, what I've brought for this broken planet. Resurrection is about to be introduced to the lost, the broken, the dark, dead places of planet Earth. This is what he meant back in verse 4. If we go back just a couple of verses, when he heard about his friend Lazarus being sick, he said, this sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory. Glory is a word that I would tune out when I would hear words like that in church. Glory means the substance. It means to encounter the remarkable instead of just cognitively thinking on an idea or a thought or a story or remembering something that's happened. When you encounter glory, you're encountering the remarkable. It leaves you saying, wow, what on earth is happening? That's the experience of glory. And Jesus says, no, Lazarus' sickness is for God's glory so that God's Son may be glorified through it. We read on. The disciples are confused. They don't understand. Why is Jesus waiting to go visit our close friend Lazarus, one of his closest friends who's sick? Jesus tells them plainly, Lazarus is dead. And for your sake, I'm glad I was not there. There's another confusing statement. For your sake, whose sake? He's not near Bethany. He's still at least a couple days' journey away from Bethany. We'll see that in just a few minutes. He's only with the disciples who were traveling with him. So he's saying to the disciples, for your sake, I'm glad I wasn't in Bethany with Lazarus. Why? So that you may believe. The disciples already believe. Believe what? These are the men who've said, we see you as the Messiah. Peter was the first one ever to say, I now know you are God who has come to this planet to visit us and to live with us and to make your dwelling here and to reveal to us the actual nature of God's kingdom and God's love and his reality and his plan. We see you for who you are. We've seen what you've worked and we see your power. The disciples already believe. So believe what? That something brand new that no one has ever been able to understand or comprehend is now about to be placed in front of you. Resurrection from bad and ugly and challenging. I have come to this world to reverse the decay and the hurt and the brokenness and the loneliness and that story that just haunts you that you can't get away from, or that decision that you made so long ago. I have come to resurrect bad and broken and ugly things into beauty and good and to life. And just 8 or 9 days before Easter weekend, we are right here on the brink of the Passion Week. As Jesus moves towards Bethany, towards Lazarus' hometown, we are just days from the Passion Week, the 7 days leading to the cross and to the resurrection of Jesus. Jesus is intentionally, he knows every detail of what he's doing. He is now, before his own death and his own resurrection, trying to help our minds and hearts begin to absorb the full extent of why he came. That is what he wants them to believe. He is trying to move their belief and our belief to this other way above religious activity experience and understanding. God has come with love and power to turn our bad and our failures into good. Even in death, Jesus wants to work good. On his arrival into Bethany, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now, Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, probably there on the edge of the little town of Bethany. Jesus said to her, finally, this makes sense. You and I, regardless of what your faith background is, just you and I growing up in America in the 21st century, certainly this side of the resurrection, we understand language like this. Finally, Jesus says something that is sensible and makes sense. Your brother will rise again. Good news. Finally, there's some good news in the story. Now, Martha's answer is interesting. I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Now, Martha's saying two things here. She's speaking of what some of the Jewish tradition and belief system was, that like the Israelites, her people long ago who were in slavery for 400 years, and God still heard their cry and came and delivered them. there's this idea that, like freedom from slavery in Egypt, we will be made alive again. And Martha most likely believed that her brother will experience that because he's a good person. He's followed all the religious rules. He's really been good to try to adhere to all the religious system. And so Martha says, I believe someday, after he's been dead, who knows how long, that there will be some kind of life again. Martha's really speaking to, and this is why our series coming up in next week and the rest of April is so important for us. When we ask the question, is my good good enough? Martha believes her brother is good, and that's why he will experience something good way in the future. And Jesus said to her, Martha, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die. Even in physical death, not to mention the challenges we face and the circumstances and the disruption going into Easter weekend, Brad, and just all the planning and work that's gone into this weekend. This is small. What I'm experiencing this weekend is a small issue compared to the challenges that so many people have faced in this sister losing her brother. Jesus says, even in death on earth or human death, I'm still the one who is already at work in resurrection work. Jesus is saying, Martha, resurrection isn't just an event that's going to happen long in the future. I am resurrection. I am life at work in the broken, in the ugly, in the hurt, in the failure, the loneliness, the loss, having been bullied, having been mistreated at work. I'm at work. If you allow me, I will begin working life in all of those moments. The one who believes in me will live even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. She doesn't understand what that means. But she's going to after the cross and resurrection. Within a week, within about a week and a half to 2 weeks, it's going to start to set in on everybody who's following Jesus. This is what he was showing us in Lazarus, that he has come into this world ultimately not to impress us or just through a miracle here or a random miracle there or on this side of the Sea of Galilee. He's working yet in another village, remarkable power from God. He's not starting some religion where he has adherents that just go to church once a week. Jesus has actually come to work life in death. Jesus is saying to Martha, when you trust me, when you engage me, when you let me in, when you let me lead, you will begin to experience life, even when there's been death. Martha, do you see what's happening? I have come into this world to bring dead things back to life. The question is, at the end of verse 26, do you believe this? Martha, do you believe this? And this is my question to you. It's the question here on this Easter Sunday to all of us. Now, I want to start to turn this really in a practical way to you and me. Instead, now this is kind of the sad part of the story, instead of seeing Jesus as coming into this world to regenerate, to rebuild, to reshape, to renew out of all of what we're talking about has been hurt or lost or discouraging or disappointing or broken relationships, instead of seeing Jesus at work, that's why he came, no matter what we faced or been through, he's come into your life and my life, into our hometown to make new. Instead, here's what I believe most followers of, certainly most people in the world, and I think even many followers of Jesus believe, is what Mary, the other sister, what Mary says and what Mary believes. In verse 32, when Mary reached the place, this is Martha's sister, who now has come out to join them. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Now, this is oddly a statement of faith. Mary is saying, I've seen you do countless amazing things for hurting sick people. I see you make sick broken people whole. But in her statement of faith of what Jesus has done time and time and time again, she's actually blaming Jesus. If you had been here, you weren't here, Jesus. If you had been, my brother would still be alive. And so I just want to make this really personal to you right now. What is it that you are blaming God for? What have you been blaming Jesus for? Are you blaming God for not fixing what's wrong? For not showing up? Or for being late? Is God just late in your life? He just seems to not be there or not care? Do you blame God for allowing your pain or your loss? Or for maybe just not proving himself? If God delays solving your problem or resolving your hurt, it's because he's always using the broken things of this world. Remember, we broke this world and we live in a world that he's come to restore and to begin the movement of ultimately moving this world back to the Garden of Eden. That is why Jesus came, to begin the movement of resurrecting things from the dead. Jesus' own words were that he has come to renew all things. If he delays, if he seems not responsive or not working in your timing, it is because he is using the broken things of this world. Pain, failure, loss, hurt, loneliness, a divorce, a lost relationship. He can use anything and everything of the things of this world to prepare your mind and prepare and condition your heart for what's coming to this planet, for what has already come, for what he has already begun following his resurrection. Following Jesus' resurrection, Jesus began the work of total and complete renewal. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who'd come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Now, we're about to read the shortest verse in the Bible that Jesus wept. This language here probably means he's already emotional. That's what John is telling us here. Where have you laid him? He asked. And the people said, come and see. Now, we don't have time here this morning to do a deep dive on the next several things we're going to read here. I'm just going to kind of whet your appetite, and I'm going to challenge you now on this Easter Sunday to do your part. Don't just be a passive listener. Don't attend here online or here at Lightridge today and just sit in a seat and listen and hear the words and then just go back to life as normal. Engage the story, specifically with the areas that we're going to read that I don't have time today to really unpack in the detail that I would like to, but I'm going to give you just a taste of what God is up to in the bad and the broken. And if you think your day is bad or hard, these sisters lost their brother. And Jesus is still at work in that kind of pain, that kind of loss. He's at work even in death. So here's the first of several things that we're going to kind of conclude with here today. First of all, Jesus says here in verse 34, where have you laid Lazarus? Jesus always approaches you and me, asking you and asking me, where have you laid the thing that you've given up on? Where have you laid the thing that has hurt you so badly? Maybe it's just the way parenting seemed to have just gone wrong in your life, and you feel like it's too late. Maybe the divorce left you so hurt or so fragile that you have buried the idea of trust or real love ever being part of your experience. I don't know what it is that you've buried, but Jesus comes to you and says, where is it? Where's the thing that you've buried? Take me to it. Maybe you're here with us on this Easter Sunday because you needed to hear that Jesus says, where is the dead thing that you've buried? Take me to it. Verse 35, Jesus wept. This is remarkable. These two words are just remarkable to me. I have two very dear friends who no doubt, I believe, are probably sitting in the Lightridge auditorium right now. Both of whom lost someone extremely dear to them in the last 21 days, the last 3 weeks. And to some measure, particularly with one of my friends, I've been able to spend quite a bit of time just with their loss. I just want to say to you, I find Jesus in this story so comforting, that Jesus meets us in our hurt, our loss. He weeps with us. And not only does he just stand and weep with us, Jesus wasn't with his friend when he died. The two friends that I'm thinking of here at Dulles who lost a dear loved one here recently, neither one of them could be with their loved one when they passed away. And I just find it's so encouraging that Jesus wasn't with his dear friend when he lost Lazarus. Jesus stands there with the crowd and weeps. Then the Jews said, "See how he loved Lazarus." But some of them who saw this love, this emotion, said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" They are so limited in understanding the idea of resurrection. It had to have happened. There was a time limit on when Jesus could have worked the good, and he was late. He missed it. That was their thinking. Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It's interesting that John tells us again there's emotion. He's probably weeping now that he's arrived at the tomb, weeping again. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. Take away the stone, Jesus says. But Lord, Martha said to him, "By this time there is a bad odor, for he has been in there 4 days." Can you imagine talking about your brother this way? I mean, this is morbid. And, to some extent, I guess we've all done this, at a funeral, after we've lost someone, a friend or a loved one, after the cremation or the burial. I mean, here we are on Easter Sunday. I even hesitated to even mention this part of the story, but it's a part of what Jesus does. Even in the morbid, this is a morbid picture that speaks of the finality. Sometimes we think the finality of loss or a hurt that's so bad or a regret or something that we never got to say, and we think it's too late. We never got to make right the thing that we should have made right a long time ago. Mary's giving us a picture here and talking about the odor, or Martha, talking about the odor after 4 days. There's such finality in the minds and hearts of the people standing outside of the tomb of Lazarus. And I venture to bet, like me, there have been times in your life where you thought it's too late. Or where is God? Why is he late? Why does he seem to care about this person or these people? Why does faith seem to be so natural and easy to them when God never shows up for me, or he's not shown up? I am telling you that Jesus came to ultimately show us in the 8 or 9 days before his own death and eventual resurrection that he ultimately came to make broken things whole and ugly things beautiful and dead things alive. Then Jesus said, "Did I not tell you that if you believe," this is what he said to the disciples. Remember? I'm glad I wasn't there so that you would believe. And believe what? Believe something new. Not that he's American, not that he's starting this political movement of overtaking Jerusalem, certainly not a religion, that ultimately we would believe this unbelievable, yet he wants us to believe that this is the heart and nature of God, to make all things new. Jesus said, Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. Jesus looked up and said to the Father, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe." There it is again, that they may believe that you sent me. They already know that the Father sent Jesus. He is now revealing to them, compelling them to this new level of belief that he's come to make alive out of what's been dead or lost or given up on or forgotten. When he said this, Jesus called out in a loud voice. Now listen, John doesn't just use this language. Ancient writers certainly weren't using filler language here. Let's just say that he called out in a loud voice. It doesn't mean Jesus elevated his voice some or that he was trying to speak above the crowd. This means that in the authority that we see in the upper room, we read this last week, that sitting at the Last Supper, the Father had given Jesus all authority, all power over all things. And so what did he do? He got up and put the servant's towel around and he washed the feet of the disciples, serving them, showing them, in my authority, in my power, I can do anything I want. I'm choosing to go to the cross for you, to serve you. In this authority that the Father has given him, Jesus calls out in a loud voice, emphasized here by John, Lazarus, come out of the tomb. And the dead man came out. I believe this. I actually believe it. I get emotional at Easter and different times of the year when I tell different parts of the narrative of Jesus because I believe Lazarus actually walked out of the tomb. His hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, take off the grave clothes and let him go. Okay, a couple more things I'm going to just kind of whet your appetite on here. That you going forward today and this week and the weeks ahead, spend time in John 11, reading and listening to this again and allowing these kinds of thoughts to permeate your heart, to change your thinking, to change your paradigm. Jesus spoke for Lazarus. Here's an example. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. You can do this yourself here in the coming days. Jesus spoke for Lazarus when Lazarus couldn't speak for himself. And this is what Jesus does when he says, take me to the dead thing. Take me to the thing you've given up on. Take me to the hurt that hurt and wounded you so badly you can't trust again. Or you've questioned if God could ever be there. Or you've given up on love. Or whatever the dead and buried thing is, take me there. Jesus also speaks for you and me when we can't speak for ourselves. I love this. I had never noted or journaled anything like that before until I've read this story so many times, and this is the first time that really stood out to me. Jesus fights for you. He defends you when you are lacking energy or you don't think you have the faith that you should have. He'll defend you and fight for you if you'll let him. Here's another example that you should spend time on here in John chapter 11. Jesus calls us into a new future. Jesus finds us where we are. He meets us where we are, but he never leaves us there. Jesus never leaves you the way he found you. He always meets you to be working good and new in your life, regardless of what yesterday was or your past or the brokenness or what he did or what she did. Most of the world has talked about Easter, certainly my whole life, and I think in much of history. Most of the world has talked about Easter as the dramatic end of the story of Jesus' life. Easter tends to be talked about as Jesus came, he spoke love, he did amazing things, and then at the end of his life, he died and came back from the dead, and it's a pretty remarkable story. And so once or twice a year, this is what we tend to do when we see it as the end of the story. That thinking pushes us into a religious mindset. And so religiously, once or twice a year, we stop, we pause, we think back on the cross, the resurrection. It was important. For some reason, God wants us to acknowledge it. No. Easter wasn't the end of Jesus' story. Easter was the beginning of the brand new movement that Jesus came to start for this broken planet. Easter isn't the end. Jesus' resurrection was the radical start of the new that will lead planet Earth toward his end game of everything made new. And so I'm going to end this Easter here. For those of you who've joined us from different parts of the country and maybe other countries, for those of you sitting here in Lightridge this morning, I'm going to put on the screen our core purpose, like I did last week. I want to just, we've been fine-tuning our language. Our vision has never changed. Why we exist as a church has never changed. This is so important. Easter has everything to do with who we are as a church community, as a family. And I'm going to challenge you here at the end of this Easter towards two things. One is, are you ready? Are you ready to let Jesus completely in? Are you ready to be freed by Jesus? Are you ready to allow him to really begin his work of what he wants to do to renew and to restore in his timing? Are you ready to say in your timing, not my timing? And the second question is, will you join us in this movement of renewal here at Dulles Church? Will you not attend on Easter or Christmas and not even just attend weekly to listen? But will you actually engage and participate? I'm going to put on the screen here our core purpose in describing what we're all about here at Dulles. We've been saying this here in recent weeks. We exist. Our purpose here at Dulles is to help our community, anybody and everybody, wherever they live. This isn't about proximity. This is about having a common unity. Those who believe, that actually believe this is why Jesus came, to renew all things. That's our community. We help our community embody the love of Jesus. That means no longer just listening or being a spectator, but actually living out. We're actually putting into practice the love of Jesus for the good of our neighbor and for the renewal of our world. Are you ready to join us? And listen, I'm not using Easter to fill spots that we need help in various teams. That's not what this is really about. I'm inviting you to join us in the movement. Yes, maybe you fill a role on our coffee team, welcoming people and making them feel at home. Or maybe you join our video production team as a part of the team, ensuring that our experience with Jesus and our story and our reality is shared with others. Maybe you join the team that helps check on people during the week. If you're interested in actually being a part of this movement with us, join me in my backyard 2 Tuesdays from now on April 13th. We need you to give us a heads up that you're going to join us. If you're somewhere else in the country, we'd love for you to join by Zoom for 1 hour. I'm calling it Vision Night on April 13th. We're going to talk about actually living out Easter, not just going to church once on Easter and remembering that he did something at the end of his story. No, we want to be part of the story that he started. We want to be part of extending and offering and inviting toward remaking and renewal to things broken and to people who've experienced brokenness. If you want to be a part of that and a discussion about how to engage and where you can play a role in this, join us for Vision Night in my backyard on April 13th from 7 to 8. Just let us know by emailing christinab@dulleschurch.org. We'd love for you to be a part of that. I'm going to pray with you about the big decision today. Maybe this Easter Sunday is when you decide, Jesus, I'm ready. As he brings you to the line of faith, maybe this is the day that you step over, that you cross over the line of faith and say, in your plan, in your timing, no longer me trusting myself or trusting government to make my life better, or no longer trusting humanity to figure this out. I'm going to trust the one who brought resurrection into this world and into the dark or hurt of my life. I'm going to pray with you. Jesus, I believe. I don't have it all figured out, but I believe. I know these words are true. And so today, on Easter Sunday, Jesus, I give you my life. Jesus, I give you my life. If you prayed that prayer, would you let me know? Will you contact the church? I'd love to just celebrate with you and send you a note if you were one of the people who prayed that with me today. I love you guys. Happy Easter. We get to be part of the renewal work of the one who came to remake everything that's been broken. Happy Easter.